In today's inner confrontations, I am pointing my Sagittarian arrows towards my own heart. The arrows carry the flame of my will with the intention to burn away all of the imprints of the ways in which my passion and the passion of my innocent heart have been misguided by their own pain, by programs of ignorance, and by instantiations of deceit. In breathing these willful and flaming arrows energetically, might I even say erotically, into my heart, so as to dance the linguistic dance, I have been reminded that healing is a slow process. A slow process of loving. And that fast-paced healing, these Instagram posts, come to our ayahuasca ceremony, come experience this workshop and transform your life in 3 days. These are the same capitalistic extractive force which creates fast food for fast consumption, for fast results, to satisfy this survivalistic sensation of urgency, 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 hurry the fuck up. Where healing is like a home-cooked meal by an old Italian grandmother who's cooking not by herself, but with her entire ancestry behind and within her heart. And seamlessly, in a way that is divinely aligned and organic and natural, just following her intuition and the primordial memory of her ancestry to guide the concoction of deliciousness into being. Healing is this slow process of letting go, of breathing deeply and with care and with love into those deepest places which you have neglected for a majority of your life, with no expectation of transcendental and fast and breakthrough instantaneous results, but simply in surrender to the process itself, which will take however long it needs to. Why do I say all of this? Because while yesterday I had this tremendous breakthrough moment with my pain, where I truly touched upon some multidimensional, ethereal, and mystical depths concealed within my heart, There were certain particular charges yesterday which weren't quite as expressive today. Today's confrontations of pain, today's feeling of the depth of the pain, today's breathing into the depths of my heart were more about presence. And slowing down, renouncing the urgency, trusting the process, that God is guiding in every moment, where each moment is a choice point between God and godlessness, and an opportunity to face all of the ways in which a habituation of choosing godlessness has been cultivated within the body, and a recognition through the breath into the body of all of the ways in which that has been cultivated energetically within the body. If you are here on this planet, in this realm, doing the work of liberating your soul, unless somehow you have grown up completely immune from all of the programming that is ever present in this world, chances are your journey began in the darkness of self-sabotage and of seeking within the vice-filled world and the programmatic nature of Babylon that which the innately coded purpose of your soul was looking for. And actually finding that within these parts of the world, there was only fleeting pleasure and emptiness. If you're anything like me, this process has been going within your body, which has been targeted and assaulted by these programmatic cultivations for years and years and years. Not to mention the eons of ancestral wounding and pain. Source of the inheritances of sin and wickedness and fallenness and inversion and imbalance which we perceive here within our world today. So that all of this, within the three-dimensional physical world of being, where habituation and programmatic patterns enmesh themselves and holographize themselves, become holograms and holographic imprints within our body, there is a process of deconditioning which essentially takes time. Whereupon it's important to give ourselves grace in the process of shedding the layers and of renouncing the patterns and of replacing them with the truth of our souls and the purpose of our souls and the rediscovery and resurrection of our souls. There is something to be said about transcendental willpower's ability to come and interject with the material sphere of causality, where these programmatic imprints, my goodness, I'm losing my footing, where these programmatic imprints enmesh themselves, and to create a sacred boundary that says, no longer is this a part of my reality. Perhaps the ghosts and vapors and echoes of those imprints will try to come and impose themselves behaviorally, but there is a sacred no and boundary which is hereby established by willpower, by transcendental willpower, which comes from God, which is a gift from God, which is a creative power with reality generation as an attribute of its being, which we all carry within ourselves as our wills, as our own selves. So there is something to be said about the instantaneous healing that happens when we truly devote ourselves to the invocation of a transcendental choice within the materiality and embodiment of our being. For example, vulnerability. I am coming in vulnerable. Oh, sand on my feet. For quite some years, ever since I was quite young, pornography was a part of my reality. And it's not until the beginning of this year that in my wars against that programmed pattern of behavior, my will has finally come in and said, no longer will I cave to the false pleasures and ghostly habituations of that pattern of my being. No longer will I be a slave to that vice. No longer is that mechanical chain of causality which has enmeshed itself within my body and within my heart. No longer will I ever say yes to that again. And my transcendental willpower, and discipline were what was required in face of the ancient and primordial and primeval pleasure that exists within the sacral center, within my life recreating organs. Some would say the purpose of life itself, of reproduction and sustenance. My transcendental willpower has come into my body, witnessed the patterns themselves, witnessed the deep pleasure-seeking principles to which those patterns have attached themselves, and it has willfully, with the assistance of divinity and God and truth and freedom, said, no, we are establishing a boundary, and there is now a portal of instantaneous healing which is now opened within the body at the closure of a portal of falsity which was open when consciously or unconsciously operating within the mechanics of the entire pornographic realm. This is such a deep topic, and I didn't even think that I was going to touch upon it, but here we are. So there is something to be said about transcendental free will, willpower's ability to come and recode the body instantaneously and say, we recognize the codes of inversion and imperfection and illusion and ignorance and pain. And here we create a node of reclamation of sovereignty, of negation of the very things which feed upon and amplify the pain itself. Now, when this happens, and similarly, when you experience moments of deep healing breakthrough, such as I did yesterday, those are moments when the transcendentality of your soulful being, aligned with God, with support of God and your angels and God's angels, come into the body and create this energetic, let us say, portal of healing, of remembrance of divinity, portal of presence, really, because all it is a reclamation of the divine presence of the I am, which you are and which I am, each in our own ways. When such breakthroughs happen, when such moments of willful reclamation happen, they insert this presence, they reclaim this presence, they reopen the portal to the divine from within at the expense of the programmatic patterns which were feeding upon the pain that was once unfelt. But nevertheless, that unfelt pain and the programs and the habituations and the patterns and the material chains of causality which are coded into your body, they're still going to try and come to express themselves. Like little specters and ghosts clinging to life and sustenance because you have been their feeding source. We have been their feeding source. So they're going to come and try. And they're going to present themselves as the illusions which they are. And the choice points are going to return. Temptation or purpose. The choice point will be, will I return to the comfort, even though I know it to be illusory, of the patterns which I have chosen to renounce? Or will I finally, in a way that is embodied, replace them with something that is more purposeful, more prayerful, and more rooted in the power which God has breathed and imbued into my body and my being and my soul and my will? Every moment is an opportunity and a choice point between these bifurcating realities. And that is what this game of free will is all about. Which is all to return to the idea and the felt experience from which it comes. That so long as you remain devoted to your expansion and to the uncovering of your purpose and to the resurrection of your union with God by way of prayer and resurrection of power, divine power, not illusory power, and not some weird ego-driven, delusory, self-motivated form of power. Power in source, in service to others and to God. With that devotion and with that chosen devotion comes an opportunity to witness how every moment will test you with regard to the depth of that devotion, and will test you with regard to the depth of your willingness to renounce the patterns which stand in the way of that devotion and of that expansion. of your expansion, of your liberation, of your freedom. Within this stream of transcendental atemporal reality coming into material causality, coming into material reality, and willfully exclaiming boundary, reorientation towards purpose, and resurrection and reunion with the divine, there is then a certain level of patience and presence and awareness and grace that are then inviting you to be a witness to the process of shedding of the layers that will try to reemerge as the specters which you have turned them into in putting them to death, in order to then become more fully who you are and reclaim more fully your full embodied presence. And it is okay if it is slow, and it is okay if it still hurts. And it is okay if the fears and the triggers and the worries and the anxieties and the imperfections still present themselves, because that's what they're going to do. That's in fact probably what they are coded to do. And within the grand purpose of divine orchestrations of will and divine omniscience and omnipotence and omnipresence of God's will, somehow having allowed evil to exist and occur, so long as you remain devoted and you practice that devotion, then every temptation, every instantiation of false pleasure re-emerging, every pattern re-presenting itself is an opportunity to forge the sword of your own will and your own resurrection. Or in my case, to sharpen the Sagittarian flaming arrow of my will into my eros, into my pathos, into my telos, purpose. Greek words. I must refine my Greek. Oh my God. For there's codes, astrotheological codes contained within the words from which our languages have emerged. These are the living, breathing ancestors of our language, and English is merely the progeny of Greek and Latin and Germanic tongues. But I don't know much about that, except like somewhere innately I am coded to be passionate about such things. So I'll hear in this that I'm supposed to follow this thread, instead of saying like, oh, that has nothing to do with anything that I've just talked about. Yeah. The I am simply is. And its reclamation is innate within your being. All that needs to happen is the shedding of the layers of conditioning, which will happen within your lifetime and over many lifetimes. And slowly but surely, we will shift collectively away from all of these imprints of falsity which we find within the civilizational world, and towards co-creative, community-oriented, and physically actualized manifestations of the inner work that each of us will do within our lives. so long as we actually do it. So long as these do not remain words merely, but embodiments and actions of devotion and of truth. Yeah. Patience, purpose, and devotion. And all will align itself according to the will of God. It feels like that is it. Blessings.